Hi, everyone. My name is Matt, and I'm the manager at Runner's Alley. I hear you are all about to start training to do your first 5K, the comeback 5K. So for some of you, it might be a repeat performance. I'd like to thank Christy very much for having me on this chat with you all today. And I'm here to just kind of talk about shoes, hydration, socks, and proper running form. Now, Runner's Alley has been around in Manchester since 2001. And basically our mission is to make sure that people get the proper shoes for what they're trying to do. And the proper shoes for running are important because when you go out and run, it's basically a repetitive motion. And so the more repetitive that is, if you have things that are happening where you're kind of dropping in or something, it's just that all that little extra movement is going to cause for achy knees, hips, ankles, even lower back. So what we do is we try to get in shoes that's going to match how you run, otherwise known as your gait, and try to neutralize everything. So that way you can run much farther, much longer, and most importantly, in way less pain, if no pain whatsoever. I mean, you're still going to get tired, and and you're going to feel exhausted, but there's nothing we can do about that. All right, training helps with that. So what we do is we like to use a process we call the right fit process. All right, and before we get too far into that, I just want to show you a few things why it's important. So most of you, some of you, or even just two of you, might be thinking, yeah, but my friend said I should get this brand shoe, and because they said it works for them, everything will be fine. The problem is that your friend, while they mean really well and they might be a good person and very smart, they're not you. And unless they've actually watched you run and seen how you move and asked about your previous injuries and how the aches and pains that you have, then they don't really know for sure what you should be in. And just going with a certain brand doesn't also make sense either, because within each brand, they make so many different types of shoes. What we do is we take all those different types of shoes that they make and basically figure out what levels they sit at. And that way, when you come in and after we do the gait analysis and scan your feet, we can actually pull from a bunch of different brands shoes that will work well for you. Now, there's lots of different things that the shoes can do too. There's different levels of cushioning. There's heel offsets. There's widths. There is shoes that are made for slower running. There's shoes that are made for faster running. There's flexible shoes. There's stiff shoes. I kind of sound like Forrest Gump talking about, or Bubba Gump talking about shrimp, if anyone can remember that movie. So that's why it's very important to kind of come in and see someone like us at your local neighborhood running shop that's a run specialty store, because this is what we know. This is what we do. For example, I brought with me 6 shoes to kind of show you real quick and basically what they do. First off, this is a Saucony Freedom. This is what we would call a neutral shoe. Why is it a neutral shoe? Because I can twist it like nothing and everything in every single direction, all right? And so what that means is someone who overpronates or may tilt in a lot as they run, like the arch kind of collapses in, a shoe like this is going to be your worst nightmare. All right. So there's other brands of shoes out there too. Not to poke fun at one, but a very well-known one that a lot of people wear is the Nike Free Run. They think, hey, running and being free does sound great, but if you overpronate, it's going to cause a lot of issues. Next up would be like a stiff neutral. So this is still a neutral shoe. So if you are overpronating, this one won't work so much for you either. But that extra level of stiffness for people who have just a little bit of movement, this could work well for them. And then we move up to a light support system, where this one just has what we call we don't really have a name for this yet because it's a brand new way of doing the support, but I would call it a metatarsal skeleton. I mean, not metatarsal, I'm sorry, a medial skeleton, as this replaces what used to be a medial post. All right, which used to be the only way you would get support was with a medial post. So this is just kind of a ridge that kind of goes around and provides a little support to prevent that collapsing in. Then you have this one that's even a little bit higher level of support. And this one uses a trustic system through the bottom. It uses the way they expose the gel. It also uses a special foam that coats over here. So there's many different aspects of this to make this even more supportive. And then you have a shoe like this, the 860. Now this is a medial post. I kind of get close. You can see that little different foam, the different direction. If you could press on this, you'd see it's much firmer than the rest of the foam around it. And what that does, and what all these supports are designed to do, is that as your foot comes down, instead of collapsing in, that solid foam and everything underneath the arch catches it and allows the rest of the shoe to catch up. Now it's a little hard to see there, but that's what when we talk about support in shoes, that's what we're talking about, is devices in the shoes actively trying to push you back out from collapsing in. A lot of times people come in and say they need supportive shoes, and you might be thinking just a shoe that fits really nice and snug and you feel good in. And we want you to have that too, but we talk about support differently. And then you have a shoe like this, the Addiction, and this one is super stiff. It has these massive guide rails on the inside and everything. And this is for people that have like much lower arches or much more collapsing in. And you can see it's also very stiff and everything too. So I just pointed these out, like not saying one of these shoes is perfect for you, but there's many different styles of shoes. There's even a few that I didn't even bring up and to kind of show, because otherwise I could talk about this for days and you all don't have that much time, right? So that's part of why what we do is so kind of intensive and important. There's also things like inserts. Adding the right insert to your shoe, depending on how high or low your arch is, because shoe manufacturers don't put arches into shoes anymore. They basically rely on inserts to be put in, and there's neutral, there's supportive inserts, and you have to make sure you get the one that's going to be correct for you. And you also have to make sure you don't use a corrective insert in a corrective shoe, because then that'll be too much support. Too much support can be a bad thing. All right, so like this one by Curex, this is a very neutral insert. It's like got a nice high arch to it, and it'll help hold your foot and everything and kind of just give you that customized feel underneath. Then we have this one that's going to be hard to see because I have a green screen behind me, and I grabbed the green one, so that doesn't help, right? But this one right here has a much more plastic piece on the bottom and actually provides support. All right, and then we have this one by Atrix, which this one actually has the support by using a really high arch right here. And that locks your heel in place and supports the subtalar joint where the leg connects to the foot a little bit better than something like this that kind of goes further through the foot. Now, there's so many different options. Not one of those is right. If you come in and ask me what's the best insert or what's the best shoe, the correct answer is going to be whatever is right for you. All right. I use 2 different styles of inserts. I run in 6 different pairs of shoes, because I work here and I get a discount on them. You don't need 6 different pairs of shoes. But I'm just saying there's many different possibilities. There's many different options you can have. And it's going to be based on what you need the shoes for, what you're looking to do. Now you're like, well, where do I start? There's so much. Well, that's what we do here. If you come in, we'll do the gait analysis, scan your feet, and then we'll choose the shoe options that are best for you. You try them on, see which ones fit best. We'll make sure they're working correctly for you. And then boom, easy. All right. One of the most easy and most painless retail experiences you should ever have is what we're going for. However, we will ask you a lot of questions like aches and pains, injuries and surgeries you used to have, how much you're looking to run, how much you've been doing lately, and pretty much everything except, nothing too personal. Don't worry. We don't want to know your social security number or your maiden name or the street you grew up on. All right. But that brings me to the gait analysis in general. So that's the biggest part of our right fit process and the biggest part of what we do. So what we'll do is we'll start with all those questions I just listed. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have you walk barefoot. So that way we can actually see, just get a baseline of how your foot moves. If there is kind of a little collapsing in, your toes, are they raising up and down? Your arches, are they collapsing in? Are you walking to the outside? What are your knees doing? Are they going in? Are they going out? Are they straight? Or even just kind of do you wobble side to side? Then, especially if you're running, we'll have you do a little jog down and back. And that's just so we can see everything under a little bit more force, to get an idea of like, okay, like, is it overpronating a lot? Is it supinating a lot? Just to make sure we're seeing what we were seeing with the walk. Then we'll have you stand on one foot like this. All right. So basically we just have you stand on one foot to kind of see what your balance is, So are your arches collapsing in? Are you going to the out? Are you getting a lot of wobble and movement? And then we'll have you just bend the knees as far as you can. That also lets us know your level of flexibility in the calves, the hamstrings, and the Achilles, so we can choose the proper heel offset for you. Sorry, here I am. And it also allows us to see if there's any more overpronation going on. So we take all of that, and then we We put it in the back of our brain for the moment, and then we'll put you on our HREX scanner, which is going to measure each foot individually, and then take a pressure map of your foot. The pressure map allows us to see kind of how you put the pressure throughout your foot onto the shoe, and if you're prone to any kind of twisting or anything. So it just kind of lets us see in the gait analysis, does that match up, or why we're seeing what we're seeing. So with all those things combined, we can then start we'll pull a shoe or two to start with, see how that works. We might pull a different footbed to put into the shoe, like one of those inserts, to see if that makes everything a whole heck of a lot better for you. And then go from there. And then it's about what you like, what feels good for you, what doesn't feel good. If you hate everything we brought out for you the first time, that's okay. We can fix it, because until we get it on your foot, we can't be sure. All right. So that's pretty much what we're doing with the gait analysis, and why the process is so important. Because if you just walk in and go, hey, I like that shoe, it's blue. That could cause serious problems down the road, because if you're not overpronating or neutral, it's going to push you out like that. And that's going to cause problems right up all the way through to your hips. All right. And then vice versa, if you were like severely overpronating, you're still going to drop in, and that's going to cause problems. So we just got to find that nice sweet spot for you. And a couple other things too that we find that are issues is sizing. Recently, I read a couple reports. One was a little less scientific, that said at least 30% of women are in the wrong size shoes and also the wrong type of shoes. I read a report that was actually a little bit more scientific, that said 80% of men are in the wrong size shoe. We see that a lot, actually. Unfortunately, our feet do keep spreading out over time. It's one of the cruel things about life, that your feet are going to keep getting bigger, just like your ears and your nose and student debt. All right. But so basically what we want to do, we want to make sure that we do put you in the shoe that fits correctly. And the shoe that fits correctly is going to have room in the toes. The laces are designed to lock. The laces should hold your heel back into the shoe, and then your toes have room to play the piano in the front. That allows for a natural roll through the process. All right. So as I push down on here, you can see they do kind of want to spread out just a little bit, not too much, but if you have it too tight, you're going to press everything in. Obviously, that's an extreme right there. But you want that extra room, so as you roll through, it's more natural, and then you don't run the risk of forming bunions and binions, because with a tight-fitting shoe, all you're doing is pushing those toes over, and that's how a lot of bunions, binions, things like that get formed, and then that leads to really painful surgery down the road. So size is a big part. That we also just have to make sure that we get you in the right size. And it's okay if you go up. It's okay to have that little bit of room. Some of you are thinking, like, why is he talking about this so much? And it's like, it's one of the hardest things we have to get people to wrap their brains around when they come in. And then, well, actually, I already talked about the other two things. Is one, listening to your friends. Choose your own shoe. That's always the best thing to do. All right. And just realize that support shoes are different than what you're looking for. All right. Let someone who's a professional, whether it's a doctor, podiatrist, or a professional shoe fitter, let you know if you need a support shoe or not. All right. So I think I kind of beat that drum as much as I possibly can for y'all. So I do want to drop into a couple other things. One, other things you're going to need for training: moisture wicking socks. I don't have any data on this, but most of the time, blisters are caused by two things. One, socks that hold moisture like cotton and also don't hold their form. And two, ill-fitting shoes. If you come and see us, number two should never happen. All right, we do make mistakes every once in a great while, but it's usually going to be the socks that cause it. So what happens is, we like to say cotton is rotten. It holds moisture, and then you have a wet sock rubbing on your wet foot because the moisture can't get away, and the cotton will stretch out because it's a nice natural material that has some give. And what that'll do is just a wet sock rubbing on your foot for those 3, 4, 5,000 steps that you're doing while you're out running. And that's how your blisters are going to start forming. The other thing that can get you in trouble too is seams. A lot of just your standard cotton socks will have like raised seams on the inside. And raised seams, those will kind of just rub on your toes and everything else. So good socks that you would want are moisture wicking, big time, all right? And 2, flat seams, all right? So I have this sock here. This is a Belega Hidden Comfort, all right? This is a nice high cushion soft sock that we sell, all right? It has a dedicated heel as well. So it's nice, it stays and fitted to the foot, all right? And then on the inside, if I was to roll this out, where the seam is right here, flip that over, there's a seam right there. It is not raised, it's nice and flat. There's nothing to rub on your toes or catch your toenails or anything else. Socks like this too, running socks tend to have a higher stitch count, hold their shape, hold their form a lot better, a lot less elastic, there we go, material are inside them. So less to break down and go bad. These socks right here, these are what I consider some premium socks that we sell. I have people come in and say they are set on these socks because they bought them 10 years ago. They're still comfortable. They still hold their form, their shape, and everything else. We also have other socks like Features. Those are great too. These have a left foot, right foot to them. So it can make laundry a little bit tough, but what you're getting is a sock that is tapered, as a tapered toe box. All right, so it's a little bit higher up here and gets lower down here, and has some constriction to the arch. And these are kind of more that tighter kind of performance fit. And then we have ones like Darn Tough that are made in Vermont with 100% merino wool, which I know you're thinking, wool? That sounds warm. It's about to be summer. Wool is actually, merino wool is thermoregulating, which means that hot days keeps your feet cool, cold days keeps your foot warm. So you can run these all winter long. Basically, those socks that Nana darns you out of wool, you don't want to run on those, all right? But these are great. Also, lifetime guarantee on the Features as well. And like I said, the Belegas don't go bad. There's also ones by Saucony that we sell that work great. They don't last as long, but they're like kind of the fill your drawer socks, more value style ones, and they'll still last a few years with the proper care. So socks is a big part, and that moisture wicking does extend into the clothing that you may wear as well. So just kind of remember that flat seams, moisture wicking clothing, that'll make everything more comfortable. One more thing I want to talk about, and it's really hitting me where I live right now because I'm a little thirsty, but it's hydration. So especially when you start running, you want to pull out all the stops that you can to make sure that you get through your runs as well as possible. And running while dehydrated it'll lower your performance by just 2% of dehydration lowers your performance. So that means like over the course of your run, you just keep dropping off. So if you can run with water and just take small sips the whole time through, that'll keep you well hydrated and actually keep you performing better. Even though I do like running marathon distances, when I go out for a half-hour run, which is going to be well within your training that you guys are doing, I will bring water with me. All right. So anything half hour or more, I'm definitely bringing water, and more than that, and even more than that, there's like backpacks and everything else you can use. But for what you guys are all starting with, like a 5K, a great option is just a little water bottle. Now, the great thing about a running water bottle is they usually have hand things for it. So you don't actually have to carry it while running, because you just leave it on there and you squeeze it as you go. All right. Little pocket built in, has some, also has some insulation to it to help keep your drink cold. All right. This is a more solid one that holds its shape the whole time. And then you have one like this that's actually flexible and kind of breaks down into, actually, it kind of goes down to nothing as you go. So it gets smaller and easier to handle. So, and we have a bunch of different great options like these. You can find them most places, but I just want to make sure that you do take hydration with you when you run. All right. Wow. Actually, I think I'm almost out of things to say, which is not something you hear me say too often when we talk about running. So I guess I want to jump to running form. By the way, if any of you ever have any questions about this, you're free to just come in and stop and ask. All right. you're not just because you walk in the door, we don't expect you to buy anything. If you just have questions about running, feel free to come in and ask. Everyone at the store is a runner in some way, shape, or form, whether it's 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons. I even have a couple of my ladies do ultra marathons as well. All right, so we're all pretty well versed in almost every distance. Yeah, so I guess now it's really talking about proper running form. This part of the talk is basically where you just have to, when you go out for a run, you have to relax. You have to center yourself basically, and then just keep going. This is one of the hardest parts about running. When I go out for runs, one of the biggest things I have to do is constantly keep checking in. How is my form? All right. When I start feeling too tired or start slowing up or things start feeling a little weird, 95% of the time it's because I've lost my form. It's an easy thing to lose. So I want you to kind of all think about this, remember it, jot it down if you can, get some pen and paper. You have a moment while I'll move to the back here. All right. But this is really the most important part. And it's super easy. It's just have to keep checking in. All right. So, all right. So y'all can still hear me all right, right? All right. And you're wondering, how do I know you said that? Because Christy's watching this right now to make sure. So don't worry, I'm not like psychic or anything. But proper running form is basically trying to keep your body upright and centered over your landing spot. That's the simplest way I'll put it. All right. So basically when you run, first start off by standing up nice and straight. All right. Shoulders back, arms at your side, everything's kind of in line. Then you want to put a little lean into it, just a little bit of a lean. All right. Only a few degrees, but basically where you shift the weight off your heels and start putting it onto your toes a little bit more. All right. So if you were against the wall, you'd be able to put your fist in between the wall and your back. All right. So with that little bit of lean, arms to the side, about 90 degrees. Now they're always to your side, like this. This kind of running. You see what I'm doing? Just kind of how everything's kind of moving a little bit more side to side. That's going to throw everything off and cause aches and pains and all kinds of stuff you don't want. But off to the side, see my body is not now twisting in any weird way, and I still have good motion and good mobility. And this will match with my legs more too when I actually start running. So hands at the side, straight back, shoulders back, lean forward, and then we're going to drop the chin just a little bit. All right. All right. And then that's basically the main part of your running form is this position. Now you're like, wait a minute, but don't my legs have to move? And yes, they do. All right. But when your legs move, basically, because you're leaning forward, everything's back. When you run and land, you're going to land underneath your knee. And your knee is going to be underneath the major part of your body. The biggest problem runners have is overstriding. All right. Where basically your foot's in front of your knee. All right. Now, you see a lot of articles about heel striking being bad. It's not heel striking, it's overstriding. Most of the time people overstride, they do land on their heels. So that's why people assume it's just heel striking. But if you're landing on the middle of your foot, your toes, or anything like this, it's going to cause more movement and everything. It's a braking motion while you're trying to move forward. It's way more force than your body wants to handle. So that's why it rebels and hurts and makes you stop doing it, right? All right. So when you run, it's actually a push off with the back foot. All right. You're never pulling yourself forward. All right. This isn't running. That's I don't know what that is, to be honest with you. So it's run, land, body over the knee, under the foot. Body over knee over the foot, body over knee over the foot. That is one of the main things. Dr. Rachel McNeil, you'll see her in another segment. I don't know if it's before or after mine. She'll talk a little bit about cadence. The beauty of cadence is if you can pick it up a little bit, it'll cause you to land underneath your body a little bit more because you're taking shorter, quicker steps. But finding the right cadence for you, she'll talk a little bit more about that. All right. So I think that's pretty much it on the running form, to be quite honest with you. Now I'm wondering if I forgot something, so that's why I'm looking. And sorry for the do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's the main things, like while you're running those, to kind of check in. A lot of times when I find I'm like running slower or something's off, I'm actually leaning back more. Especially when you try to run faster, it's natural to want to lean back but you're not a cartoon character, so you gotta keep that lean forward going. All right. And then other times I realize that I don't know what I'm doing with my arms and they are starting to cross over. Even just that little bit starts throwing things off. So you really got to keep them off to the side. So continuing to check in on those things as you're running will definitely help. And it's also breaks up the monotony a little bit, believe it or not. All right. So, all right. So that is basically kind of a light dive, believe it or not, into the world of shoes and running form. If any of you are brand new to running, I encourage you to come in and see us or another run specialty store where you can get properly fitted for shoes. Any of the stores too should have the option to make a return if the shoes aren't working well for you. That means you try out the shoes, you run in them outside, land some puddles and everything else, and you're like, everything still hurts. You can still bring them back to exchange them for a shoe that's going to work better for you. Because sometimes we get it wrong. All right, we're still human as well. But sometimes also we just don't have enough information until you actually start using them. So I just want to make sure you all know that. By the way, as taking part of this, you also get a discount coming in, I believe. Oh, how much was it? Now I'm drawing a blank. It might come to me in the next couple of minutes. If not, Christy will definitely know what it is. All right, so you can ask her. I'm sure you all have her email address. If not, her personal address is, no, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I really don't know how much else I can tell you without just talking and talking and talking forever. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up, and I hope to see all of you in the store right here on Elm Street. The sign looks just like this, all right? And we're in between George's Apparel and this new arena, so you can't really miss us. Great parking on Central Street, free on Saturdays.